Okay, so this one here is going to be an introduction to the Connect object. It's a handy little tool that's got a number of different uses. So let's just jump in and see how we go. So we just started off with our ellipse. We're going to throw a duplicator into the scene as well. We'll change our distribution here down to Fibonacci. And I just like this because it kind of looks semi-random and it creates a little bit of space between them. Create our connect shape. And we'll come up to source. Change this to submesh and pop our duplicator in. And it looks like it's crazy. So basically for this one, we're just going to change our target. So everything here is just all connected all over the show. So we're just going to, we've got our source and the target to work with. So in our target, we're just going to change from circle down to point. And it brings everything into the center. And if we click on stroke, we're just going to change the color here. Change that down, and we're going to put our duplicator on top of it, so that way just so the lines sit on top. And remember, you can just hit F and it frames your scene. And to create this radius and create the explosion, we can just bring this right down. So we'll just keyframe it at 200 and bring it down to 0. And just adjust those curves for a bit of a pop. So what I also added was a little bit of noise, and that way it's just like a little bit of extra action going on there. In my scene here, I've also added a blend submesh positions. And the way this works is that basically I've got another duplicator, and I am using this to drive those positions to these positions here. Within this as well, you've got a shape time offset so that it looks a bit more organic. And another thing that is going on is that these change color, and that is used through a fall off. So you can see they're all green here, and I've actually animated that fall off so that they all change color over time. Another little thing here that's going on is the lines all retreat. So if we just bring up our connect shape, we have the option down here to trim the paths. Cool. And what's going in is just a value, and I've actually time offset with a random in here as well. In this example here, we've used the connect shape again, but we've used it to join the points together of the shapes. So let's have a quick look and see how this works. Okay, so we have two circles here, a grey circle and a black circle. And in this instance as well, I've also added a divisions deformer. You could possibly do it with the divisions down here, but I'm just doing things my way. So now we'll bring up our connect shape again. And in our source, we'll go shape points, and we'll bring in our shape point here. And in our target, we will also bring in shape points, and we'll bring in our other shape. And then we'll go over to shape, and you can see it's a bit crazy here. So instead of changing to nearest, we're just going to go point index. And that lined it up for us. So we can just come in here, change that to something a bit smaller. And as you can see now, it all moves around quite nicely. Okay, for this one, we have our ellipse and we have our duplicator. Change the distribution type to point and change your count. Now we're just going to jump into our ellipse shape and we're going to add the 3D matrix. So what we want to do is add some rotation on the X or the Y. So we're just going to go right click and we're going to use a stagger. And that rotation should be 360. And you can see here we have our little faux sphere. So we can rotate this by just clicking on this offset and adding a frame. And you can see it spins around. So the issue with this is that the weight of the lines changes, which is not what I want. I want everything to be the same weight. Go into our duplicator, click on deformers and go trim path and bring the count down to 1 and go back in there again, and we're going to add our submesh and we're going to click on stroke, and now all those lines are the same weight. So if we come down and add our color array in there, as we have our lovely little rotating sphere. So I think I just rotated it like that as well, just like a small little detail, and away you go. So yeah, trim paths, that's I've used that before a number of different instances. So here it's just going to come in handy just to set that weight to the same across all those ellipses as they rotate. Okay, so this one here, it looks kind of basic and kind of simple. I had done some unnecessarily complex setups in the past to try and create this nicely distributed circle on a growing circle. So the trick here is pretty basic. So for the initial setup for this, we have our ellipse and we have our stagger, which is incrementing the radius. And if we put that into a duplicator set to point, we can then just adjust these however we want. Cool. So the tricky part, well, it's not actually tricky at all. But say if I wanted to then duplicate this onto here, so we'll just throw it into another duplicator, and we'll choose shape points. It's not very exciting. So what we have to do is open up our duplicator and add divisions. Okay, yeah, so basically this is just going to add those divisions. Pretty straightforward. Okay, but the trick here is to also adjust this max length down the bottom. So if we just change this to 30, it's going to give us, so maybe we can bring this down a bit. 20, nope, 40. Nah, 30 was good. 30 was good, and I'm just going to change this down a little bit in size. Yeah, and basically that just gives you the nice even distribution across all of those circles. Visually, it just looks a little nicer. So there you go. For this one as well, this has a little bit of rotation going into it. The way this works is that it's using the index context to drive a frame node. That's why there's not much rotation on the inside. And on the further it gets out and the higher the index, the higher the value here and the more rotation you have. So I've just got like a simple expression here which basically says divided by 10 plus 0.5, and it's plus 0.5 so that there's at least a little bit of motion going on that individual, on the initial duplicator. Cool. Okay, for this one here, we are using the blend shape and we are blending a circle with another circle which has got some noise on it. Okay, so to start off with, we have duplicator and a couple of circles. So this circle here is a radius of 31, and basically we're just going to add a noise to it. Okay, so for this is the one that's fed into our duplicator. So we're going to add a blend shape, and blend shapes work if the objects have the same points, same point count. And you can see it's kind of working straight away. So we're just going to right click on here and add a stagger. Stagger is going to be 0 to 100. Okay, and then we're just going to come down here into our noise. Okay, and you can see there's this crazy overlap. So what we're just going to do is come down to context and go index. And I'm going to change the duplicate count to, you can change it up and down to whatever you want really. Okay, so basically you just got to turn off that other duplicator as well. And just play around with the noise. So the frequency is going to push things out in interesting ways as well. So in our stroke, we have this index to color. So basically that's just swiping, basically just blending. You can see here it starts off green, it goes through all these colors, ends up black on the inside, which is quite cool. So to create those, create that custom gradient, you've just got the option up here, set gradient from palette. So we can easily just change this as well to something else. It's quite cool. And that's that. So what we're going to do here is create our ellipse shape, and we're going to use masks, and we've got this option up here to feather them. So I'm going to put a random in here, and I was just having a play around, and I thought 25 was pretty good, and minimum is 0. So we've also got this option use bias graph down the bottom, so just tick that, and I'm just going to change this so that we get a few more that are closer to 0, and then it'll shoot up to the maximum. So I can click here and I can just edit this out. We can play with this later on, or you can play with it later on just to see how that effect works. Okay, so now if I just click on the seed, flicking through it, you can see that there's a bit of variation going on there. And if we want a bit more of this effect later on, we can always just tweak it and see how we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to click on my group and put this into a duplicator. And we'll just try the Vinci again. So what we could do here is change that shape scale. You could either do the shape scale in the group or here, your call. The benefit of doing that shape scale within this group here is that you can choose the actual pixels. So it's quite handy. So basically you're just doing the same thing. You're just putting a random onto the radius, and you're just setting your maximum and into minimum that way, which is quite handy. So we're just going to come in here, add the noise. This is all pretty common stuff. Okay, and we'll just add a few more. The color array also used a This is just like a value for calico value fall off. Now we have our composition, and we're just going to use this ellipse to mask it. And then if we just, I'm going to turn this back on as well, just to let you know I've got a gradient on there, just a conical gradient, just to give it this nice kind of edge around it. Okay, so in our composition, we're just going to add a filter, chromatic aberration, and we're changing those repetitions up a little bit, and we can change the rotation to bring it around. So you can see, yeah, it's just got that nice kind of soft effect with it. So I'm just going to go back in here, and I am going to change that shape scale to something else. And I'm just going to do it in here. I just feel like it's probably the better option. And with that chromatic aberration as well, the whole point of it is that you've got the separations with the colors. So we can come into the colors tab over here, and we can just push those colors around until we come up with something that we kind of like. So the repetitions creates a smoother effect, and that rotation is also worth experimenting with. Maybe a bit too much, but you get the general idea. Whoa. Cool. So yeah, that's basically just a quick run through of how to create a few different effects like this in Cavalry. Hopefully it's kind of giving you a few different ideas. I just love that you've got all these different options to play with and create fairly technical looking illustrations without relying on any kind of coding or scripting. As you can see, I've got the Calico palette over here on the right. And yeah, basically it's a bit of an updated version from what I initially had. So you can just jump along to my Gumroad and you can check that out for free, or you can donate a little bit of money if you feel generous. So with this one here, what I've done here, Calico, this is just using the Calico fall off, which is this one here. It's a value. And actually, I'm going to come in here, delete, and basically, yeah. So that's a new kind of feature. So now, like in the previous version, you'd copy a URL from Coolers. So now what you do is you basically just click on the color palette, and then you have the option of clicking noise. You have the option for a random, and you also have a modulate. So the two new ones here are value, so basically, which is kind of handy. So this just uses the fall off. And the other one is multi-point gradient. So basically we have our multi-point gradient here. We just click on that, and it's basically just created a multi-point straight away for us, which is kind of handy. You can just toy around with that and a bit of fun. everybody works at different paces and everybody's at different stages of learning Cavalry. So yeah, I just appreciate your understanding on that front, and I just enjoy just smashing out some nice little designs and then quickly running through. I haven't got all the time in the world, but yeah, I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, thanks for following along.